Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining me in my kitchen. Tonight we're cooking up a loaded miso soup, as you saw. If you're new here, my name is Ashley Thomas. I'm a registered dietitian and the host of Cook With Me TV, where I cook live every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and I teach you how to cook a healthy meal from scratch in under 30 minutes. And the loaded miso soup absolutely fits that bill tonight. It's delicious, it's healthy, and it's one of those recipes that you're going to want to keep on the back burner for when winter comes, because it's a nice feel-good recipe, and we're already starting to feel a little bit of fall here in Illinois. I don't know about you or where you're from, but give me a wave, a hello. I see we have a few people on, but I can't see exactly who's watching, so let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and more importantly, if you're cooking with me tonight. So, as you can see, this is a live show, kind of, but really what I want you to do is actually cook this meal along with me. So I try to post the ingredients ahead of time so you know exactly what you need. And then on Wednesday night, you get home from work, you get out your ingredients, and you get ready to cook with me. It's a really great way to start getting into the habit of cooking at home on a regular basis. And what better way to do it than with me? I try to keep it fun and light while inserting a little bit of nutrition information here and there, so please feel free to ask me any questions that you have along the way. We're going to go ahead and get this meal started. So here are the ingredients that we're using tonight. Bok choy, I did put in the ingredients list baby bok choy only because it is a little bit easier to cook with in this recipe. I couldn't find baby bok choy at my grocery store, so I've got the regular bok choy, and I'll show you how to cut this up. We've also got, I went to the Asian market and I was lucky enough to find some beautiful shiitake mushrooms. If you don't have an Asian market near you or your local grocery store didn't have shiitake mushrooms, not a big deal. Use whatever mushrooms you like, portobello, baby bella, whatever you can. I also found these really fun enoki mushrooms. You've probably seen these before, or maybe not. So I'm gonna throw these in at the very end. These are super fun. They're very tender and mild flavored. The shiitake mushrooms are extremely flavorful. I would say that they pack the most flavor out of any mushroom I've ever tried before, so I'm really excited to be using these guys. We're also going to be using tofu. If you're not a tofu lover or you're very skeptical of tofu, you could use chicken in this recipe. You could use edamame in place of the tofu, or you could just make it a veggie soup and not even put any protein in there. Okay, so I am seeing that maybe some people are commenting and I can't read the comments. So I'm gonna just really quick pull this up on my phone. Y'all know how it is with Facebook and me being able to see the comments, not see the comments. Hey, Lindsay, good to see you. Hey, Janet. Hi, Nate. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Janet's cooking with me. I'm so excited. Yay, yay. Using my mic here. I'm going to probably butcher this. De Ingles? Is that? Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Correct me if I'm wrong. Put a phonetic spelling in there so I can see. Okay, so, and then lastly, of course, we're going to need some noodles. So there are so many different kinds of noodles, and usually at your grocery store, you'll have some options in the ethnic aisle of your grocery store, like in the Asian section. They're dried. You could get somen, you could get ramen, buckwheat, whatever they have available. I was able to find these, like I said, at the Asian market. If you do have an Asian market near you, or you're not sure if you do, Google that, because you can find some really, really good deals on these things. So like if you bought shiitake mushrooms at the grocery store, they'll probably run you like, I don't know, $6.99, $7.99 a pound, which is pretty expensive. I got this entire bag for $2. I also got this, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 packs of noodles for like $3. Usually it's one pack for $3 at the grocery store. So they just have things at a more affordable price. It's what they specialize in, so it's going to be a little bit cheaper. Hey, Valeria! Good to see you. I nailed the name. Love it. Love it. Look at me. I don't always nail the name, so I'm pretty excited about that. And then miso paste, of course, which we'll talk about in a little bit once we start to put this into the soup. But let's go ahead and get things started. I'm gonna quit babbling on. So if you are cooking with me, the first thing we're gonna do is chop up our mushrooms and our scallion. So depending on how many people you're cooking for, I'm just gonna cook for 2 tonight, maybe have a little bit of extra left over. So I'm gonna use 3 scallions. And if you need to rinse them off, go ahead and do that. I do as well. And then also rinse off or clean off some mushrooms. So I'm gonna use, I don't know, let's see. I'm gonna do about 6 of these shiitakes. I'm gonna chop them up or slice them up before we actually throw them. So what we're gonna do is just lightly saute these things, kind of start building some flavor before we add the stock or the water in the miso paste in that soup. So do you guys like miso soup? Have you ever made it at home? Have you ever had it before? So Janet, what I'm gonna do is just use the white parts of the scallion for right now, and we're gonna save the green parts for later. So what you can do is just kind of snip off the ends there like that, and then we'll just go ahead and slice the white parts up until you see the scallion get a little bit more papery and dark green. The white part of the scallion is going to be much more pungent, and so that's why I'm wanting to cook this part down a little bit first. This stuff is great to eat raw, the green parts, the green tops. Oh, sweet. Thanks, Nate. D. It's pronounced like D. Okay. Awesome. Spreading the word. A little tip for washing mushrooms, they will soak up quite a bit of water if you just rinse them off under the faucet, which isn't a big deal. I mean, we are about to throw these into a soup, so they are going to absorb quite a bit of water. But I know that a lot of people who cook prefer to just use a damp paper towel and just kind of wipe off the dirt and clean the mushroom that way, just so that you can allow that mushroom to absorb the flavor from a stock, for example, instead of absorbing just plain old water. You just get a little bit more flavor in your mushroom if you clean it this way before cooking it. Who likes mushrooms? I love mushrooms so much, but I know a lot of people don't like mushrooms, so I'm curious. And have you ever had shiitake mushrooms before? They're so good. Little goes a long way. And now that I'm saying that, I think I'm just gonna do maybe 4 or 5 mushrooms. And then the next thing we'll do after you've got those mushrooms cleaned off is we'll just give them a slice. And the beauty of this soup is that you can really make it your own, right? You don't have to do everything I'm doing. I mean, if you've never made it before, it's always a good idea to try to stick to a recipe as best as you can so you can see what it tastes like. But if you're somebody who, you know, you like mushrooms but not that much, then maybe you want to back off on the amount of mushrooms that you're using. Or maybe you don't like mushrooms at all and you want to use a completely different vegetable. Totally fine. Do that. I think mushrooms are my favorite vegetable to chop. It's just very satisfying to run my knife through them. They give you a little bit of resistance and then it's kind of like smooth sailing once you get your knife in. It's pretty exciting stuff. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. Yes, Janet loves mushrooms too. Wonderful, which is probably why you're cooking with me tonight, because you love mushrooms. Okay, so now let's head over to the stove and you're gonna wanna get a pot out, a soup pot. It doesn't have to be this big, but something that has maybe like a 4-quart pot would be good. And we are going to add a little bit of oil in the bottom. I am using a toasted sesame oil. A sesame oil just goes really well with the other flavors that are going on in this dish. Kind of adds that Asian feel to it. I'm just gonna do about 2 teaspoons of oil in there and we'll get this heat started. And then we can go ahead and throw in these scallions and mushrooms. We'll just saute these for a couple of minutes just to start getting some flavors working. And I am going to add just a pinch of salt in here too. Valeria loves mushrooms too. Do you guys have any like favorite mushroom recipes or like ways that you like to use mushrooms? Because I feel like I kind of get that question quite a bit. And I never know how to answer it because maybe I just don't pay attention to the way I use mushrooms. Kind of just throw them in anything. But I know for a lot of vegetarians, they can be considered somewhat of a meat replacer for texture purposes. There's definitely, you know, mushrooms are not a high quality source of protein or anything, but they do lend that kind of meaty feel. Okay, so for those of you who are just tuning in, welcome to Cook With Me TV. If you're new to the show, this is a live cooking class where I teach you how to cook a healthy and delicious recipe, of course, because it always has to be delicious if it's going to be healthy, in under 30 minutes. And we do it from start to finish. So we do have someone cooking with me tonight. So again, Janet, let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow, and I'm happy to modify my pace here. Lindsay says she likes adding finely diced mushrooms to meatballs sometimes. Ooh, yeah, that's a great idea. You still kind of get that meaty sort of texture in there, and you're slipping in a vegetable into your meatballs. It's very sneaky of you, Lindsay. Hey, Alicia, thanks for joining. Alicia loves miso soup. She told me earlier. It's a very satisfying broth. Okay, so while those things are sauteing, let's go ahead and we will chop up our bok choy. Again, baby bok choy works best. If you did get baby bok choy, then you really don't need to chop anything. You might want to just chop off the butt of the baby bok choy and then maybe any extra fibrous looking parts towards the end of the stem. But other than that, your baby bok choy is good to go. But because I didn't have baby bok choy, I'm just going to peel off a couple of these guys. And I'm going to chop up the white parts as well as the green part, just to make it a little bit smaller. It'll cook a little bit better. And bok choy is it's in the cruciferous vegetable family, along with kale, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. And these vegetables pack a mean punch of cancer-fighting antioxidants. So cheers to those cruciferous vegetables. If you can fit these bad boys in several times a week, you're doing pretty good. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of slice these into 1/2 inch thick pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save these green parts for a little bit later. So I'm going to add the white parts into the soup first, just like I did with the green onion, right? Because these guys are going to take a little bit longer to cook. I just don't want these to get too soggy. If you're doing baby bok choy, you don't really need to worry about that. I always just stick them in, and they're usually fine. If you want to experiment and chop the leafy green part off of the top of your baby bok choy, then you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw these white parts in. Oh yeah, oh, those mushrooms are smelling so good. All right. Okay, so then let's go ahead and we are going to add our water into our pot and start making that broth. So I'm using about 8 cups of water. I've got a pretty big pot here. If you're using a smaller pot, go ahead and just fill up your pot halfway with water. And you might want to add a little bit more, but we'll talk about that as we go. So the thing with this soup is, like, I mean, I have a recipe that we can use that's very, very structured and, you know, using 4 cups of water and 2 cups of vegetables and things like that. But I really want to encourage people to kind of like cook on their own pace and really test things out as you go, because that's really where you start to develop the most confidence in the kitchen, and when you can really start to experiment with foods, and you'll just find that you'll enjoy cooking so much more that way. Okay, I'm gonna top this off a little bit. I'm not quite half full. And while we're doing this, or rather after you get your water in this pot, go ahead and cover it with a lid so we can bring that up to a boil, and get out another pot and boil some water for your ramen. You could just throw your ramen straight into that pot and cook it that way in the soup, but you're gonna release a lot of starch from the noodles, and the soup gets a little gummy if you do that, so I prefer to cook the noodles separately. And you don't need to salt the water or anything. Just turn that on high, put a lid on it, bring it up to a boil, and we'll throw our noodles in that guy when it comes up to a boil. All right. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. Okay. A couple of optional things for today. Seaweed. If we think of classic miso is very simple. It's just tofu, seaweed, and scallion in miso broth. We're obviously heightening it tonight by adding some noodles, some other veggies, and some seaweed. So you don't have to put the seaweed in. It just adds a little extra flavor, a little bit of a, I don't want to say fishy flavor, but sea flavor. So if you don't really like that, then you could leave it out, but I do encourage you to experiment with it just to try it. Okay, and now what we're gonna do is once the soup with all the vegetables in it comes up to a simmer, we're gonna scoop some of that water out and put it into a jar or a bowl or something like that, and mix that miso paste in there and create sort of like a slurry. So before we do that, just a few words on miso paste. There's a bunch of different varieties of miso paste. There's a red miso paste like this, which is going to be darker, obviously, the darkest in color, and it's going to have the most robust flavor. It also tends to be a little saltier as well. And then there's a yellow miso paste, which I don't have, and a white miso paste, shiro miso. So you can definitely tell the difference. Oh, that's not the color. The difference in color here between the two. The white one's going to be a much more mild flavor. I really do like the robust flavor of the red miso. It's just a little bit saltier and flavorful. And the wonderful thing with this is that you can just start small with like a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of the miso paste, add it into your soup, stir it up, give it a taste. If it needs a little bit more flavor, add another teaspoon of the miso paste and just kind of do that until you arrive to your desired flavor. Hey, Michelle. Oh, I know. She misses the shows with Lindsay and I. We don't really live near each other anymore. Although we're kind of near each other, but not close enough to just, drive over for the day and do a show. Cool. Nate's saying that he has white miso. Do you guys make miso a lot or frequently, or what else do you use miso paste for? I'm curious. This is another one. It's just a white miso, just a different brand. Found this one at Hy-Vee. Let's go check on. All right, let's coming up here. If you caught last week or the week before, I did a talk on the benefits of eating fermented foods and adding more fermented foods into your diet because they contain healthy gut bacteria. And miso paste was one of them. Now, the thing with preserving the probiotics in the miso paste, though, is that you would need to turn the heat off of this soup, let it cool down, and then add your miso paste, because you can kill the bacteria if you boil the miso paste. Now, we are actually going to kill the bacteria tonight for this soup, because I really want these vegetables to cook in the broth, and I can't really do that any other way. So I'm gonna just try to get my probiotics somewhere else during the week, and we'll just have to be okay with that. So at this point, if your water is simmering, go ahead and scoop like half a cup of that hot water into a bowl. And then we're gonna go ahead and add the miso paste into this bowl and whisk it together, or just stir it up with a spoon, or however you want to do it. This cord keeps falling. Sorry, I keep reaching in here. Okay, I'm gonna get a spoon. Janet, Ashley, did you add 4 cups of water to soup or 8 cups? I did 8 cups for the amount of vegetables that I'm doing. So if you imagine having this soup, it is definitely a brothy soup. And keep in mind that you're going to have vegetables in there, and then we're also adding in tofu and noodles. So you'll see that once we start adding all those things, they tend to crowd the pot. But at the very end of it, if it's not looking brothy enough, all we have to do is add more water and more miso paste. Really easy fix. I've never seen miso paste in a little plastic thing like this before. It smells good. All right, so I'm gonna I added about a tablespoon in here, because like I said, I've got 8 cups of water. And I'm just gonna move that around. Stir it together. And the reason that I'm doing this separately in a completely different bowl is because if you add that paste into the big soup pot, it kind of gets lost in there and you don't always get it all mixed up. So you'll be eating your soup and you've got like, oh yum, like a big clump of miso paste. So this just helps ensure that you're getting it all mixed in. Ooh, yeah. If you are using white miso paste, and Janet, I'm curious what type of miso paste you're using. If you're using white miso paste and you find that the flavor is just too mild, you want something a little bit more, you can add a little dab of soy sauce into your soup. Okay, so then just go ahead and pour that in. Pour it back in, give it a stir. Yeah, it's looking good. I'm very excited. Okay. I'm gonna give it a little taste, kind of see where we're at. Oh, it's good, but I think it needs a little more. Okay. Let's try this again. A little bit more. I'm doing another tablespoon. If you find that you've added too much miso paste and it's too salty, add more water. Looks like our Water for our noodles is boiling, so I'm going to drop the noodles in just a second. Try to get all this mixed together. It smells so good. Okay. That in there. And we'll just let this continue simmering. Okay, I'm gonna dump my pasta. Well, not pasta. Ramen, I should say. I'm so excited that I have all of these noodles. If I can even open the bag. Okay. So I believe that these little packages, they're packaged neatly, serves about 2 people. I'm gonna do 2 of them just so that we have extras for the week. Because believe me, someone will eat it. It will be nice to have. Okay, and these only take about 4 or 5 minutes. Perfect. Okay, so let's let that cook, both of these, and let's go over and chop up our tofu. Oh, before we chop our tofu, we can go ahead and add our green tops, the green tops from your bok choy. Janet's using white miso. Marianne said not professional needs. I don't remember what that is in regards to, so I can't really comment on that. Oh my goodness. Okay, my stuff just boiled over. My pasta water. All right, I'm gonna turn this down to medium. I'm gonna throw these in and stop trying to multitask. Okay, very good, very good. Everything's under control. We're good here. Just a little spillage from pasta water, not a big deal. So let's go ahead and chop up that tofu. Yes, Janet, I forget. So Janet's in Denver, so yes, she is at altitude, and her water is going to take a little bit longer to boil. The things I don't, have to think about. Okay, tofu. As you can see, we're using silken tofu or soft tofu. It really is more enjoyable in miso soup compared to firm or extra firm tofu because it's not able to really absorb much flavor in the amount of time that we're cooking it. So this is just a little bit more palatable in this soup. I recommend getting the soft versus the hard. So I'm going to slice this open and drain it. And then we're going to cut it into just bite-sized pieces. And like I said, if you're not a tofu fan, you could use some other kind of protein, like edamame would be really good in this. You could do chicken or pork. Or fish, if you were so inclined. I'm just gonna make a few slices this way. Flip it over. Do the same thing on the other side. And then cut them into cubes. So then you've got little bite-sized pieces of tofu. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in. Everything looks pretty under control over here. I just ate that little sliver. It's actually really good. I know this sounds weird, but So I was a vegetarian for about 4 or 5 years in college, and I ate a lot of tofu, and I really started to love the flavor of raw tofu. I know that sounds very off-putting, but it's actually quite nice. It's very refreshing. It's almost like a palate cleanser. It's good. Nate's agreeing. That's the worst. Water taking forever to boil. Okay, so what we can do while we're letting everything else cook, we can go ahead and just finish slicing up the green parts of our scallion. There must be a dog walking by because now the dogs are freaking out. And we're just going to throw this into the soup at the very end when we turn it off. Love me some scallion. Okay, and I'm also gonna get these little enoki mushrooms out just to kind of prepare. They're so cool. I want to show you. They grow like that. They all grow in like a bunch. And they kind of remind me of coral or something in the sea. But you just break them off and they're like little mushroom sticks. They're so cool. I love them. They look like little sea vegetables. They're usually pre-washed. You don't have to wash them. I'm just going to cut the bottom off. And I'm not going to throw all of them in. But I might just, you could either just like garnish individual bowls with the enoki mushrooms, or you could throw them in and let them float around for a little while. Mushrooms are a good source of B vitamins. And people do like to talk about how mushrooms are a good source of vitamin D. And while there may be some vitamin D in mushrooms, it's not considered an excellent source of vitamin D. So don't expect to get all of your daily vitamin D needs from mushrooms. Okay, let's go check on these guys. And this is looking good. My bok choy is cooked through. Mushrooms are looking good. I'm going to taste the broth again just to see what it might need. I still might add a little soy sauce. Ooh, that's nice. That is very nice. That's got a nice flavor. I think I am just going to add a dash of soy sauce real quick. These are done. I'm going to turn these off and drain them and then return them right back to the pot. So I know, Janet, you might be a little behind schedule because your water's taking a little longer to boil. But at this point, you'll just be kind of waiting on your noodles. So you should have like all of your veggies and the tofu or whatever protein you're using in that pot, simmering with the miso paste in there and maybe any soy sauce that you wanted to add. Wonderful. Just add these right back here. I know it's kind of blown out. You can't really see the noodles very well. And what I like to do is store the actual soup separate from the noodles, because if you put the noodles all in the soup and then you have soup left over that you're going to put into the refrigerator, these guys will break down. They'll get super mushy and kind of gummy, like I said before, in your soup. So I would store them separately and then just add the noodles into the soup whenever you plan to eat it again. All right, a little bit of soy sauce. And we're just about done. I'm gonna throw the scallions, the green scallions in here and grab a bowl and dish it up. Oh. Wonderful. I'm gonna just turn the heat off of this. Yay. Okay. And soup, especially miso soup or ramen, is best enjoyed in a wide bowl, in my opinion. I just think that I think it cools down faster, actually, is one good reason. But then also, you just get to see everything a little bit more. Whereas if you have a smaller bowl, everything's kind of just stacked on top of each other and you don't get a good mouthful of everything. So I'm gonna use a wide bowl for this. Okay. What we'll do is I'm gonna add some noodles in here first. And I'm gonna grab some tongs real quick. It'll be a little easier to manage that. Oh yeah. Wonderful. I'm so excited for this meal. Okay. Get all of that good stuff. The mushrooms, the bok choy, the tofu, the scallions, broth. Oh. This all looks so good. Look at that. I'm probably fogging you out on the camera. Yay. Okay, and then some enoki mushrooms and a little bit of seaweed. So these are actually snacks. They're sesame. Ooh. Honestly, they're pretty good. I mean, they do have a little bit of a fishy seaweed flavor, but salt and sesame makes them pretty tolerable. So seaweed is, man, I'm sorry. I'm just like really shocked at how good these are. I think I got these at Hy-Vee. So again, they'll probably be in the aisle where all of the soy sauce is and all that good stuff. Anyway, let's get back to what I was doing with these. Just going to add a couple of pieces into the bowl here. You could cook the seaweed in with this broth too, give it a little extra flavor. So there we have it, y'all. Miso soup, loaded miso soup. Look at that, it's steaming. Oh yeah. Oh, so good. It's so good. Janet, I hope yours comes out beautifully as well. I'm sure it will once you get that water boiling. Let me know how it is. Well, thanks y'all for tuning in. Looks good. Nate says it looks good. It looks delicious. Again, you can modify this however you want. Let me know if you make it at home. Send me a pic. Share it on Instagram or Facebook and tag Cook With Me TV. Would love to see what you're cooking. So that being said, plan to cook with me next time. Not quite sure what I'll be cooking next time on the show, but you can look out on our Facebook page for what it is that I'll be cooking along with an ingredient list so that you can go to the grocery store, get what you need, and cook along with me in your own kitchen. You'll have dinner on the table in about 30 minutes for everyone. So, I mean, so many perks, right? You get a healthy dinner on the table for everyone. You get to try a new healthy recipe, kind of get out of the rut of cooking the same thing during the week. And you learn cooking skills in the kitchen. Get yourself back into the habit of cooking more at home on a regular basis. So give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please share it with people who you know love cooking and are trying to do it in a healthy way. And until next time, eat well. Thanks, y'all.